Now the question before us is with respect to shape and size of cells. The cells of different living organisms may differ in shape and size. A unicellular organism like amoeba has no definite shape and keeps on changing its shape. Unicellular means a single celled organism. On one time, amoeba may have its shape as this. At the other time, it may have its shape like this. Or at the time of eating food, it may extend its feet, which is called pseudopodia, if it is food. These are its false feet, which are known as pseudopodia. So, a unicellular organism like amoeba has no definite shape and keeps on changing its shape and position. Within a multicellular organism, multi means many, cellular means cells. That is an organism which has a large number of cells, that is more than one. There are a variety of cells. For example, blood, muscle, and nerve cells of human beings. Some cells are long while others are short. Some are circular while the shape of some cells is oval. Shape and size of cells are related to the specific function they perform. For example, a nerve cell is long and branched, meant for transmission of signals throughout our body. We understand with the help of an example. Suppose this is a person. Here is brain our. If we touch anything which is hot, put our hand here, we immediately feel that the particular substance is hot, and we withdraw our hands from that hot substance. Why? Because the nerve cells transmit the signal from our hand to the brain immediately. That is why the nerve cells are long and branched for transmission of signals throughout our body. On the other hand, a muscle cell is small and spindle shaped, which helps in movement. You can see here that red blood cells are of spherical shape. These are nerve cells which are long and branched. These are spindle shaped muscle cells. Components of the cell are enclosed in a membrane. This membrane provides shape to the cells of plants and animals. As you know, we are talking about the cell membrane or plasma membrane. Cell wall, an additional covering over the cell membrane in plant cells, provides shape and rigidity to these cells. As you know that in the case of plants and animal cells, cell membrane or plasma membrane is present. However, in the case of plant cells, an additional covering is there, which is extra to the plasma membrane, and that covering is known as cell wall, which is lies outside the cell membrane or plasma membrane. The size of the cells in living organisms may be as small as a micrometer or micron, or maybe are as large as a few centimeters. The smallest cell is in bacteria, and the largest cell is the egg of an ostrich. Next, another point to remember, the size of cells has no relation with the size of the body of the animal or plant. It is not necessary that the cells in elephant will be much bigger than those in a rat. the size of the cell is related to its function. For example, nerve cells both in elephant and rat are long and branched. They perform the same function, that is of transferring messages. Now, another important question pertains to the structure of the cell, or what are the different parts of the cell. The word cell has been taken from the Latin word cellula, which means small room. The cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. If we study a cell under a microscope, we would come across three features in almost every cell. Suppose you see a cell under a microscope, you will see this is the outer covering of the cell, which is called plasma membrane, or it may also be called cell membrane. Then there is a nucleus present in the cell. Then inside the plasma membrane, there is a gel-like fluid all over here, which is known as cytoplasm. And in the cytoplasm, there are a large number of different type of organelles which we will study in the next slides. So you will please observe that a cell consists of three parts: plasma membrane, nucleus, and the third is cytoplasm. Within the cytoplasm lie extremely small but distinct structures called organelles. A cell contains organelles such as nucleus, then there are bodies like Golgi apparatus, then there is another organelle which is known as mitochondria, then there are ribosomes which lie attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, or they may be floating in the cytoplasm, and there is also endoplasmic reticulum, which is another organelle present in the cytoplasm. Animal cell also contains little digestive pouches called lysosomes. We must remember that lysosomes are the organelles which are present only in the animal cell and not in the plant cells. Plant cells may have also additional organelles such as plastids. As already discussed, plant cells also have cell wall which is not present in the animal cells. The cell's organelles are isolated from the surrounding environment by a plasma membrane. This is the plasma membrane. If this is the outer environment of the cell, this is the plasma membrane which keeps the internal contents of the cell isolated from the external environment. So nucleus is what? It houses the genetic material DNA. What is Golgi body, which is also known as Golgi or Golgi apparatus? It distributes macromolecules. Mitochondria, they generate energy. Mitochondria is also known as powerhouse of the cell. Ribosomes, they produce protein. So you will please observe that we have so far discussed that normally the cell consists of three parts, which is plasma membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm, and there are many organelles present inside the cytoplasm which are now may be known as nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, ribosomes, lysosomes, etc. Next. Now we will discuss the outer covering which is present in the plant cell as well as in the animal cell. However, as already discussed, plant cells also have an additional covering outside the plasma membrane, which is known as cell wall. So we are here talking about the plasma membrane. Here is the photograph of an animal cell. Here you will see that the outer covering is this. This is plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is a biological membrane that surrounds the cytoplasm of a cell. All you see here in is cytoplasm. This is cytoplasm, this is cytoplasm, this is cytoplasm. It separates the contents of the cell. What? Plasma membrane separates the contents of the cell from the materials outside the cell. It holds the contents of the cell in place. Plasma membrane is semi-permeable and selectively permeable because it can either let a substance pass through freely, pass through to a limited extent, or not pass through at all. It means that plasma membrane, which is this plasma membrane, this is the plasma membrane, outer covering. It may allow any substance to pass through the plasma membrane and go into the cell, or it may not allow at all, or it may allow only to a limited extent to pass through it. So a question which is very important arises: why plasma membrane is called a selectively permeable membrane? Because it allows only selected substances to enter and leave the cell. Plasma membrane allows oxygen, carbon dioxide and water to enter and leave the cell. But it does not allow the movement of many other substances. For example, it does not allow cytoplasm to flow out. This is the fluid-like structure. Here, this is our fluid-like structure, which is called cytoplasm. So, the plasma membrane does not allow the cytoplasm to flow outside the cell. In animals, plasma membrane is the outer boundary of the cell. As we have already discussed, in case of animal cells, the outer covering is plasma membrane. But if we talk about the plant cells, there is an additional covering outside the plasma membrane, which will be called as cell wall. In case of plants and prokaryotes, it is usually covered by a cell wall. Now, another question arises: if the plasma membrane ruptures or breaks down, what will happen? If the plasma membrane ruptures or breaks down, there will be free movement of all the substances in and out of the cell. Suppose this is the cell and this is the outer covering plasma membrane. If it breaks, suppose it breaks from here, what will happen? All the contents, whether these are organelles or cytoplasm, they will flow out, or whatever is present outside the cell will go inside. So here we will read: the contents of the cell, that is cell organelles and cytoplasm, will leak out and the cell will not be able to perform its basic functions. For example, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Ribosomes are associated with protein manufacturing. So the different organelles of the cell will not be able to perform their functions. So such a cell with ruptured or breakdown plasma membrane will die. This is also important point. The plasma membrane is flexible and it is made up of protein and lipid molecules. So next question arises with regard to cell wall. As already discussed, in the case of animal cells, outer covering is known as plasma membrane. But in the case of plant cells, there is an additional covering. Suppose this is the plasma membrane, which is present in case of plant cells as well as in animal cells. But if we talk about plant cells, there is an outer covering again outside the plasma membrane, which is known as cell wall. Here in this picture, you can see that the outer covering is cell wall. This is the internal covering, which is known as plasma membrane or cell membrane, which is also present in case of animal cells. So here we will read, plant cells in addition to plasma membrane have another rigid outer covering called the cell wall. Cell wall is also found in case of bacterial and fungal cells. The cell wall lies outside the plasma membrane or cell membrane. The cell wall is absent in the case of animal cells. Cell wall provides structural support and protection to the cell. It is also important that cell wall is mainly composed of cellulose. So now we will learn about cytoplasm. It is a gel-like fluid which is present inside the cell in which all the organelles are floating. It is composed of, that is, cytoplasm is composed of water, salts and various organic molecules. You can see here that this is cytoplasm, this is cytoplasm, this is cytoplasm, this is the fluid-like material. It also contains, that is, cytoplasm contains many specialized cell organelles. You can see here that this is nucleus, this is mitochondria, this is endoplasmic reticulum, this is Golgi bodies. Here you can see ribosomes and other organelles. So these organelles are mitochondria, Golgi bodies, ribosomes, lysosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. Each of these organelles perform a specific function for the cell. Cytoplasm is the ocean in which all the organelles float. Within the cytoplasm, materials move by diffusion. Now we discuss about an important part of the cell, which is known as nucleus. Nucleus is the control center of the cell. It is the oval shaped body. You can see here that it is the oval shaped body which is floating in the cytoplasm. We can see the nucleus easily with the help of a microscope. It consists of nuclear membrane. This is the nuclear membrane outside. Then there is nucleoplasm. Then there is nucleolus. This is nucleolus. Then there are chromosomes present in the nucleus, and it also contains genes. Nucleus is separated from the cytoplasm by a membrane called nuclear membrane. Nucleus has its own covering which separates it from the cytoplasm, and this covering is known as nuclear membrane. There are pores in this nuclear membrane that allow selected material to go in and out of the nucleus. With the help of a microscope of higher magnification, we can see a still smaller spherical body inside the nucleus, which is known as nucleolus. This is the nucleolus. In addition to that, nucleus also contains thread-like structures called chromosomes. Chromosomes carry genes and help in inheritance or transfer of characters from parents to the offsprings. In case of prokaryotes, nuclear region is purely defined due to the absence of nuclear membrane, and in the case of prokaryotes, nuclear region is known as nucleoid. That is, nucleus is, we can also say that nucleus is absent in case of prokaryotes. In the case of eukaryotes, nuclear region is well defined or well developed, and nucleus is also surrounded by a nuclear membrane. If there is a question in the exam whether nucleus is present in the case of prokaryotes, our answer will be no. Nucleus is not present because the nuclear region is poorly defined. The entire content of a living cell is known as protoplasm. We have earlier read about cytoplasm. Now we are reading about protoplasm. The entire content of a living cell is known as protoplasm. It includes cytoplasm and nucleus. Protoplasm is called the living substance of the cell. There may be a question in the exam which is called the living substance of the cell. Our answer will be protoplasm. Thanks for watching. If you like our course, please spare some time to give a star rating to our course.